Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Conover is here to ruin the broadcast once again. I feel like you're going to get annoyed at a certain point with the Adam ruins the HasanAbi broadcast stuff.
It's all good. You coin a catchphrase. You got to be happy when people say it, you know?
Okay.
I'll never live it down. It's fine. I'm a different guy now, but you know what? I'm associated with a word. It's fine.
How you feeling?
I feel good, man. I'm tired. I've been doing press all day. Got a big member meeting tonight. It's a big day. It's a big day for the Writers Guild.
Okay.
Exciting day.
So what happened? I've been under a rock. I have no idea. What in particular happened with the Writers Guild?
Well, we've been on strike since like May 2nd. Turned out to be the second longest strike we've ever done. 148 days. We have been out marching in front of all the different studio lots. I've been marching in front of Netflix almost every day. About halfway through in July, SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Union, also went on strike. And what just happened a couple days ago was we got a tentative agreement. The companies finally came back to the table, made a deal, and then last night we released the deal. And the resolution is we fucking won. We won a huge number of things we were asking for, stuff they said they would never give us. We tripled the value, just the sheer dollar value of what they were offering us 5 months ago. It's just a massive historic victory for labor in Hollywood.
Your Twitter actually, I think, had the details, right?
Yeah, my own little paraphrase of the breakdown, but yeah, you can scroll down a bit. There it is.
Yeah. The details of the new Writers Guild contract are out. We won. Success-based residuals, strong limitations on AI, minimum writers' room staffing, guaranteed compensation and 13-week minimums for comedy/variety writers, guaranteed two-step deals for screenwriters, guaranteed that writers be kept on through production, individual P&H contributions for writing teams, script fees for staff writers, and a hell of a lot more.
A lot of those things are like specific to I can explain what they mean, but a lot of those things that writers have wanted and demanded for decades and the companies have refused to give us.
So let's go through each individual points of the agreement and like what you won.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm going to ask you, because I'm very confused. I'm a big Zaslav head. As you know. I'm a big fan of what Zaslav has done. Iger head too. You know, these guys are great. They are the real value providers in my opinion.
They're geniuses.
And as a Zaslav head, we're Zazzies in the chat. My question always was, he kept saying this is just impossible. Yeah. These are demands that are just truly unreasonable.
Yep. That's what they told us over and over again when we started negotiating in March. They told us that through May. After we went on strike, actually after the actors went on strike, Iger went on CNBC and said that what the writers and actors are asking for is unreasonable. Oh, streaming's losing all this money. We can't afford it. This is a good grid that you just pulled up because this is the comparison between the leftmost column is what we asked for. These were our proposals as of May 1st. The second column is their best offer as of May 1st. So that's where it was left when we went on strike, what we wanted versus what they gave us.
Yeah.
And then on the right is what we actually won. And as we scroll down this, you can see there's so many things where theirs says rejected our proposal, refused to make a counter. And then on the right, they gave it to us.
It seems to me like, I don't know. It seems to me like they were lying, maybe?
Yeah. Like they were lying, or that another way to put it is that we forced them to do it. Like even if they believed they couldn't do it, well, they had no other way to end the strike and make money until they conceded to our demands, and they eventually did it.
I'm trying to figure out where to place this camera.
There's really no good
being
spot.
Shown. Okay, so WGA proposals as of 5/1/2023 before was 5% and 6% of all minimums, including residual bases.
Yeah.
And they said 4 to 3.
And those are over the 3 years of the contract. So it's like 4% in year 1, 3% in year 2, 2% in year 3.
So you did get 5 to 4%.
Yeah, I mean, we met in the middle, and this is not a big number for us because of the way that writing is structured. Increasing the minimums is not the most important thing to make writers earn more. That's not true of other unions. Like when you look at UAW, they're asking for like 40%. That is not what writers need. You know, actors need more. They're asking for something like 11% in the Screen Actors Guild. But this is a more standard inflation wage increase for us, but it's not like the headline.
I'll give you one headline before we continue on with this. It seems that the best deal that the WGA had ever gotten dollars-wise was $230 million total over 3 years. This deal in and of itself is $233 million per year for $600 million total.
Yep, we tripled what we won last time.
That's about like a 1.5 Zaslav yearly salary. It's pretty good.
Spread across, 10 to 12,000 writers.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's the only metric. As a Zazzy, that's the only metric I work off of is like how many Zaslav's salaries is this
I do want to
worth.
add, by the way, that's not split just between writers because a lot of that is also going into our pension and health plan. So a lot of this directly paying for our retirement and healthcare. It's not like you divide that money by 12,000. That's how much money we each get.
Yeah.
But yes, it's huge.
So we got streaming features. Streaming features with a budget of $12 million or more receive full theatrical terms, including better initial compensation and residuals.
That's what we wanted.
And this is...
They offered us bullshit.
They gave programs 96 plus minutes with a budget of $40 million or more, received 9% increase to initial compensation, no improvement in residuals.
Like, that's a shitty counter offer. 9% for some things, yeah.
So what did you guys end up doing?
So what we wanted was streaming features with a budget of $12 million or more. That's like a pretty good, that's like a healthy budget for any movie, $12 million. You know, that's not very high. We wanted to have the same terms for a streaming feature as you would get for a movie being released in theaters. We ended up splitting the difference a bit on this. Movies with a budget of over $30 million or more, we get a 20% bump to initial compensation. That's a big increase. 26% increase in the residual base. That's even more important because residuals are how we make a lot of our money.
Yeah.
This is just number go up.
What is the HBS side of video on demand? What is that?
HBS VOD means high budget subscription video on demand. That means Netflix, Disney Plus, etc.
Okay.
SVOD always means those services. AVOD, you'll see in here sometimes, that means stuff like Pluto, Tubi.
What about Quibi?
Quibi would have been SVOD.
R.I.P. I'm also a Quibster, but that's a different talk.
Oh, Quibi. What a poor little punchline, Quibi.
Yeah. Guarantees second step, requires the second step if higher for a screenplay for less than 250% of minimum.
This one's really important.
So what does this mean?
Okay, so historically, screenwriters, people who write movies, were always given two-step deals. This means you do 2 drafts and you're paid for each one. The company started eroding over the past couple decades our contracts. They started offering people 1-step deals where they only got paid one time. The problem is, if you do 1 draft, there's never just a 1-draft movie. The studio is always going to ask for another draft, right? And they're just going to pressure you. Come on, just give it to us because you want to be a good partner, right? Don't you want the movie to be good? Blah, 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 blah.
That's more writing.
You're more writing, but now you're doing it for free. And so we've been trying to get a guaranteed second step.
Can we put that into terms like in a non-creative labor terms? Like I feel like this would be if you're an auto manufacturer and you're working at a plant and an assembly line and the bosses say, yeah, like you give us 1 freebie when we return the vehicle or something.
Basically.
Like when people return a vehicle, if you're working in a assembly plant, like the windshield, even if there's like a recall, which I guess is not a one-to-one comparison, like you have to do it for free.
Yeah, I think it's a good comparison. It's like we're being asked to do work for free that we used to get paid for. And so this has been something like when I talk to screenwriters, they're like 1-step deals, 1-step deals, terrible. This is something that we've wanted for a really long time. And look, they completely rejected it. We got just a slightly smaller version of our initial proposal. For less than 250% of minimum, that would have protected slightly more writers. We got it for 200% of minimum for less. And it applies to when screenplays are purchased. This is like a huge win for screenwriters.
Weekly pay, 50% of pay union commencement, and remaining 50% of the paid out weekly over the writing period applies to writers paid less than 250 of minimum. They rejected it and didn't make a counter. Now they have an accelerated payment schedule for flat deals.
Yeah. So TV writers are paid weekly, right? But screenwriters, people who write movies, are up until now we're only paid a lump at the beginning, lump at the end. And so if the project was never finished, right? Like if it was like, okay, we need another draft, you're working endlessly for free because they're holding this other payment over your head. And so what we were trying to get was, hey, take the same amount of money, just pay it. Oh my God. Hi. She's the best. You love David Zaslav. Careful, watch out for that microphone thing. So anyway, we're trying to get screenwriters paid weekly. Costs the same amount of money. We just want the payment to be distributed over the course of, every single week of the contract. They refused to go all the way on that, but we did get a bunch of that payment pulled up. So now people get 50% on commencement, and then they get 25% of their pay 9 weeks later, and the last 25% on delivery. So we got those writers more money earlier. We didn't get as far as we wanted to, but we did make an improvement there. Okay, the next one, well, I'll keep going. I'll keep going while I pick Kaya. Yeah, big girl. Yeah. So this one was really important to me. This is the one that I was on the negotiating committee fighting for. Appendix A is the part of our contract that covers everything that's not a narrative TV or movie. It covers late night comedy. It covers like documentary comedy like I make, like Adam Ruins Everything on my show, The G Word on Netflix.
Selfish of you.
It was very, well, in a union, you're fighting for yourself, and your comrades, your colleagues, but you're also fighting for your needs. And so basically in streaming, we had no terms whatsoever. Traditionally in television, we have minimum pay, 13-week guarantee, and a healthy residual. We were trying to get all of those things in streaming. Like on my last show, The G Word, I received almost no money in residuals for the entire first year. I only got $500 for the first year of that show being on. And none of my writers had a guarantee of a weekly minimum or a certain number of weeks worked. We got those terms in streaming for comedy, variety, game and audience shows, and other non-dramatic shows. There's some exceptions, like if it's a very short order, they don't have to hire people for 13 14 weeks. They can get them for 6 weeks, stuff like that, if it's a 6-episode show. But we got a lot of basic protections put in the contract that they did not want to give us. And it was a big deal. There's budget breaks. It only applies to shows that have a budget over $600,000 or more, which I don't love. It's not great, but we can improve it in subsequent years. A lot of what we did this year was getting stuff in the contract for the first time that we're going to improve in the future.
So question for you.
Please. And by the way, we haven't even gotten to the big shit yet.
Yeah. The question for you in this situation that a lot of people are going to have is, why is it 3 years? Like, what's the benefit of making this only a 3-year contract?
It needs to be 3 years because if it's longer, you don't have the ability to adjust to the new fuckery. Okay, so like we put AI terms in there, right?
Yeah.
AI did not exist like as a term a year ago.
Yeah.
And like now it's something in the contract. If we had a 5-year
what if we have
or a
BI
7-year contract?
I'm just saying, like, we get, you never know what kind of new tech's going to come out.
I can't believe that's the first time I've heard that joke.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we had been on a 5-year contract, then we would have had to wait another 2 years to do anything about it. This way we got really strong AI protections put in, and in 2.5 years, because it already took us 6 months to negotiate this one, we get to go back in and fight again. And so you don't want the contract to be too long. If you do, you can get screwed because the companies have a lot more time to figure out how to get around the contract, and you have to wait longer before you can go in and fix it.
Increase weekly raises staff writers and story editors, executive story editors from 6% to 5%.
Here's the important part of this that we won. Establish new writer-producer tier with weekly rate. We asked for 25% above the previous rank, and instead it's 9.5% above the previous rank. So basically in a writer's room, you have staff writers, story editors, executive story editors. You have all these ranks, right? We created a new rank with a new pay minimum, which in effect is going to give a whole bunch of writers a big boost. It gives like another step on the ladder that you can grow to.
And then you got the development room compensation.
Yep. So this is a little bit of an arcane thing, but companies have been doing these things called mini rooms where before a show is greenlit, they ask us to write most or all of the show before a green light even happens. And problem is if they do that...
Seems like a really cool way to cut costs, I think.
That's exactly
and get work done on the cheap.
Because they were paying people only their minimums. They were not paying people their sort of like whole rate. They weren't paying them their producer fees or things like that. And also they were asking people to do like the most important part of the job, right, which is coming up with the original idea, outlining it, writing those first few scripts. That's like the most important, difficult part of TV writing. They were asking people to do that at a cut rate. So we got them to pay that as a premium. And then also, I'm not sure if it's in this term or the next one. It might be the next one. When a show is greenlit, they also now have to have a regular writer's room. So they can't have the whole writer's room be the mini room where they pay everybody less. Once the show is picked up, they say, okay, we want you to write a couple episodes in the mini room. Once they pick it up, they then have to hire a full writer's room. There were a bunch of new business practices they were using to erode our pay, and we are plugging many of them simultaneously. And this is like one important part of it.
This is why we always talk about class consciousness, because when you are a part of the working class, it does not matter whether you are in a creative industry or if you are an auto worker, a manufacturer of some sort in what remains of the American manufacturing industries, because ultimately any kind of technological improvement or any kind of new distribution mechanism will be used against the working class, will be used against the workers that are the ones who are generating the value. Okay? It could be AI, it could be new methods of development, or even taking former methods of development and basically pushing for that more. One other aspect of this, for example, that you see all the time is the Silicon Valley tech giants utilizing disruptive technology, which is usually just a way to push everyone towards feudal serfdom in the form of the gig economy by absolutely eviscerating what remains of the labor protections they have in that specific service sector job.
Yeah, and look, writers, we're part of the working class in this industry. You know, we are the ones who are creating the initial value for the companies, but we don't participate in the profits except for what we have been able to extract through 100 years of bargaining this contract. This contract is close to that old. It's decades and decades old. And the only reason that anyone even thinks of television writing as being a good upper middle class job or middle class job is because of this contract. And that's why we're having this fight. And if you look at other jobs that people also think of it, like people have thought of auto working as being a good American factory job for a long time. It's because they've had strong unions the whole time.
Yeah.
So this is how we boost the working class up is by doing this.
Staff writers receive script fees on top of their weeklies.
This is a really big deal. And this is actually the one thing that they agreed to before the strike.
Yeah.
This is something that we have been trying to get for staff writers. For staff writers are the lowest level on our totem pole. They are the introductory role in a writer's room, and they have never received script fees when they write a script, which every other writer gets. And we always felt they deserved it. But again, this is like a job that we only expect people to have a year or two before they get promoted up to the next job. So we thought they had no leverage. It'd be very hard to win. They ended up giving it to us. It was the only concession they made before the strike. And our thought was they were trying to splinter us by giving us one big give early, because they thought then, oh, they've got all these young rank and file members who are excited to strike. We'll give them something big and then they won't want to strike.
Don't you think that they would reintegrate more of the writing workload back to the staff writers so that like giving certain assurances to that side? Because wasn't that a point of contention as well?
Here was our other thought is they can have, this looks like a big give, but there's no script fee if you're not hired to begin with. And if the writer's room doesn't exist at all, then there's no staff writer role. And so that's why this next one is so important, preserving the writer's room. This is one of the most important things in the entire contract. The companies were trying to eliminate the writer's room. You probably know what a writer's room is. A bunch of writers get together, they write the show together. There was no requirement for that to exist in our contract. It was possible for them to hire one showrunner, have that person break the whole thing themselves, and then farm it out to people freelance, which is a much, much lower rate. And it looked like they were going in that direction. They were shrinking writers' rooms. They were forcing people to work without a writer's room. And so if they offer us script fees for staff writers, well, if there's no staff writers because there's no writer's room, then that's a null proposal. It's not a give on their part. And so that would have been a meaningless gain unless we had preserved the writer's room, which we did. And you can see on the right there, so on the left, our proposal was a minimum staff of 6 writers in a pre-greenlight room and, 1 writer per episode up to 6 episodes, blah, 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 in the post-greenlight room. They completely rejected. They said, we will never consider this in a million years. They used the word, it is anathema to us. Look at the right. That's what we want after 5 months on strike, was a development room has to have 3 writer-producers in it, and then the minimum staff requirements apply up to 6 episodes. There have to be 3 writers. 7 to 12 episodes have to be 5 writers. 13 episodes or more have to be 6 writers. Those numbers are good. We'll improve them in future years. The important part is there must be a writer's room. They cannot eliminate the writer's room. And that makes everything else in the contract hang together.
And for those of you at home who are like, what does this change for me? I'm just a consumer. I feel like this will yield better product in general.
Oh, yeah.
Now, obviously, there's still, writers' rooms are still susceptible to the Netflix algorithm and whatever that determines is the best possible content. But overall, this will yield a better product, better content.
Yeah, I mean, writers' rooms produce better work. Like, this is the place in which, writers get together, share their experiences, beat out ideas, etc. If instead you just have one person who has to feverishly outline the whole season themselves and then say, hey, you
Sam
write.
Levinson.
What'd you say? Sam,
no.
yes.
I'm just coughing.
Yeah, no, that's a great example.
I needed a cough drop. It was a weird cough I have.
So they force one writer to outline the whole thing themselves and then farm, okay, you write episode 2 for a couple $1,000. You write episode 3 for a couple $1,000. Like on the weekend, in between your shifts at Starbucks. That's
The Weekend.
Oh, he was on that show.
It was a one season show? The
Yeah,
Idol,
I don't know what
think?
it was called.
I forget what it was called.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So-
a show with no writer's room.
Yeah. And by the way, a lot of shows that people say have no writer's room really do. The Last of Us actually did have a writer's room, et cetera, et cetera. The guy who does Yellowstone has a lot of people helping him out. It's extremely rare for a show to have no writer's room whatsoever. But, showrunners were getting more and more squeezed by the companies who were saying, you cannot have as many writers as you need. And we put a stop to it.
Writer's room minimum staff guaranteed 10 consecutive weeks of work.
So one of the most important things is that writers have to be kept on through production. So an important thing about writing, and this is what a lot of people misunderstand, writing is not just outputting the script. Writing also happens in every phase of production. Writers traditionally have gone to set, and then you watch what happens on set, and you say, oh, holy shit, that line doesn't work because the prop doesn't match, or like the way the actor read it, it sounds different, or the actor just says, I don't like the line. Write me a new line right now. I don't like how it sounds coming out of my mouth. And so a writer needs to be there, but the companies had been eliminating writers from production and not allowing them to come, not paying them to go to set, which was making the shows worse, but also reducing our wages because now we have less weeks of work for every job. And so we are now requiring for the first time that writers have to be brought to set.
So one thing I want to make clear here, or at least this is something that I've heard from a lot of other people that I want to run by you. Back in the day, the Hollywood bosses, as far as I understand it, and I think Chapo talked about this too, Will Menaker shouts out, like the Hollywood bosses were like awful anti-labor union guys, but they still had like love for the game, like for cinema,
Yeah.
There was something about Tinseltown and you know, the silver screen.
Yeah.
They did care about like at least the productive output a little bit, even though they were, of course, desperately working to depress wages.
Absolutely.
Some of the first historic antitrust violations occurred in Hollywood. That's also important. However, nowadays it does seem like a lot of the people that are put in positions of power are not necessarily interested. If anything, they have disdain for the productive output, like the creative process. And I feel like this level of cost cutting actually can only occur when you are so far removed from the assembly line of making movies and television that you think, oh yeah, we don't need writers to fucking go on set.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Because it's not, there's more, from what I understand, sorry to cut you off again.
No, please.
From what I understand, there's also a secondary reason for why writers have to be on the set as well. It's not just for rewrites. Obviously, that's the major reason for it. But then also you get on the job experience that you can take to the next set that you're working on.
I mean, showrunners, first of all, you know, the showrunner is always a writer, and the showrunner is responsible for making sure the entire show goes well. The showrunner supervises the directors, everybody else. And so you need to know, if you're a showrunner, how set works, right? And also, if you're in just a writer's room, you're just a staff writer or a story editor, you also need to know how set works. You need to know, oh, wait, if I write a scene where someone jumps in a pool, that it's going to take them 2 hours to drive everybody out to do 5 takes, and so I can't write that scene, you know, like shit like that. Just like, oh, I know how much stuff costs, I know what it's like to shoot something on the day. Like, you know, if you watching at home want to write a screenplay, please go ahead, but until you have been present for the shooting of your screenplay, you don't know much about what it takes to write a screenplay, right? You can take a good first stab, but you haven't had that direct experience, right? And so that was like a critical part, and we would try to explain to these companies and appeal to them, hey guys, the shows are going to be worse because you are not training the next generation. And they would say, yeah, that sounds like a real problem. Yeah, you can't bring anybody to set though, you know, like because those were literally 2 different departments. One person's the executive who agrees with us, but then the business affairs department, whose job it is to cut costs, says, yeah, no, you can't bring a writer to set because that would cost more money. Well, what you said about the people in charge not knowing how writing happens, that's absolutely true. I mean, we talked with the CEOs and they were literally ignorant about how the writing process works.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, you know, number pushers. They don't know shit about how the product is actually made. Because how could they? They're just people with 8 hours in the day. They're not geniuses. They're just fucking business freaks.
Well, are they using all 8 hours really at all? At all? I mean, when's the last time
they go to
they
a lot
were?
Of parties.
Yeah, when's the last time that a CEO was actually? I mean, I'm a Zazzy. He uses 27 hours of the day.
You think so?
Yeah, he has a really unique technique where he sleeps in 20-minute increments. So his day starts at 5 a.m. and then from 5 a.m. to 11, that's day one.
Is that why he always wears a vest? It's like a blanket.
Yeah, he's a Zazzy. I'm a Zazzy. He's writing all the scripts himself.
King.
He's great.
He's a king.
NBA weekly minimums during production.
This is one we didn't win.
Post-production.
This is one we didn't win. So just like writers need to be there on set, also writers also need to be there in post, because like episodes running 5 minutes long, you got to figure out what 5 minutes to cut and how you're going to make it work with the story. Only the writer knows the answer to that question. But they were having writers do that work in post without paying them their writing fee. They would pay them maybe a small production fee. It wouldn't contribute towards their pension and health. It was a big problem. We demanded that they pay us as writers during post. We did not win that one. Now, we also have arbitration cases open against that. It's like an enforcement issue. But, you know, you don't win anything. But for this kind of television writing, we won 4 out of 5 things we had to have.
Hell yeah. Span. Increase span cap 400,000 to 450. Basic cable remain at 375. Extend span protection to writers on limited series.
This one's a little bit arcane. It just refers to how many weeks of work people are guaranteed. We increased the limit so it covers more people. That one was like not that hard of a ask.
And options and exclusivity increase earnings caps from 325 to 350 and was agreed already.
Similar.
Okay, so we got foreign streaming residuals.
Yep. So this is, we don't need to get into the numbers. We wanted them to improve the residuals they pay based on the number of foreign subscribers that they have.
Holy fuck. Less than 1 million was 8%. 1.5 million, 16%. 5 to 20 million, 35%.
Yeah. And so we got a good boost here, right? Their last offer for 20 to 45 million was just 40%. We got less than 20 million's 47. So we went from, look at just 20 to 45, went from 40 to 60. That's great. Great. Now, that is what we call the fixed residual. That's the residual they pay just for the show being on the service, right? So a random ass Netflix show, just the fact that it's available at all to a certain number of subscribers, we get a residual for that.
Yeah.
What we have never had was a residual where we get paid more the more people watch it. And that is one of the biggest things that we won, because on the left side, you can see there, we wanted to establish a viewership-based residual in addition to the existing fixed residual. They rejected our proposal, and then finally, after 5 months on strike, they offered us a viewership-based streaming bonus. And they did this because not just we were on strike for it, but SAG-AFTRA went on strike for the same reason. And they told us this was something they never would have given us if we hadn't gone on strike for 5 months. And basically the way it works is if 20% or more of the service's subscribers watch the show in the first 90 days or in the first 90 days of a following year, they have to pay us a bonus equal to 50% of the fixed domestic and foreign residual. So they basically pay us a residual bonus every single year that a fifth of the subscribers watch a show. Now that seems like a really high number, but the important thing to remember here is we're going to improve these numbers every single negotiation. 3 years from now, 6 years from now, 9 years from now.
Yeah.
The important thing was we cracked the safe open. We wedged a crowbar in and we got them to agree to a structure that we are going to be able to improve every year in the future. The important thing was to get the structure in place so we can improve the numbers later. And even these numbers are not that bad. So for instance, let's talk about Stranger Things. Absolutely everybody watches a new episode of Stranger Things when it comes out.
I'm
right?
the only one who doesn't, apparently.
I also don't watch it, but definitely more than 20% of Netflix subscribers are watching an episode of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And that's an hour-long show, right? So every writer of one of those episodes will receive an extra $16,000 because that show is so successful. Same thing for a big-ass streaming movie. And this is really important because what we're fighting for is not just to be paid well, but to participate in the profits. It is our work that is creating the value, so we should participate in it.
This is an important question I have for you.
Go for it.
How are you getting transparency in the numbers?
Very good question. So the first thing, streaming data transparency. The companies agree to provide the guild, subject to confidentiality. Scroll down there.
A total number of hours streamed both domestically and internationally of self-produced high-budget streaming programs.
Yep. So they're going to give us the data.
What the fuck?
And we can use that to evaluate whether or not they're being on the up and up. And by the way, this is what we have to do with all residuals, because they always try to cheat, and say, oh, we didn't really air it that many times back in the days when it was just TV and movies. And so we have to evaluate. We enforce, we go to arbitration, we take them to court, whatever it is, and we're going to keep doing that. Like, we don't just sign the contract and say we're good. We enforce 365 days a year.
Like, if I were to ask you, you could
tell you the data. I'm not going to know it because it's going to be confidential with our staff, but our staff is going to be able to give aggregated information to us.
Go on.
I mean, look, the point is not to publish it. The point is to make sure we are able to use the data to get the money.
I mean, this also creates an environment where you are forced into collaboration with the bosses in this regard, where it's like almost a mutual self-destruction if you were to reveal this information, if it was bad, for example. So I guess they have to, it's like a forced transparency on their behalf.
The data about who watches these shows is going to start coming out because advertising is coming back into the business.
Yeah.
They're going to need, advertisers demand to know numbers. There's companies like Nielsen who track it. This data is not going to stay secret forever.
Nielsen is...
Well, they've been doing it for decades, and eventually we're going to have more standards. But the important part is not just the data, is that we got the fucking money, right? That's what we were going for.
Yeah. Transparency on that side, I think, yields better opportunities to claw back more of the profits that you're generating. So this is a huge and very necessary step.
It's huge. And
I'm shocked that, what's his name? The Netflix one.
Sarandos?
The Netflix guy, Sarandos, was on board with that.
I mean, I think they were probably, I don't have inside into who didn't like it, but I think that, it's easy to guess that they didn't like it. But they literally had no choice, right? If he wants to get another episode of Stranger Things, which is the one time a year he makes all his money, he's got to give us the data. He's got to give us the residual. There's no way you're getting out of this strike without doing it. So they had to. And that's the really important point is when you have the kind of member power that we had because we were all on strike, we were all unified, you don't ask. You force them to do what you want. You fucking make them do what you say. And it is an incredibly powerful feeling to do that. And that's what a union can do. You can force the capitalists to do what you say. It fucking rocks.
All right. Ad-supported free streaming services, which, by the way, you're absolutely correct. I think that advertisement revenue is going to have to happen in all subscription services. And probably higher tiers of pay for no ads, like an ad-free premium service. I guess this is the hard truth of the matter that I have come to terms with many times over, is that the reason why, as far as I understand it, Netflix was able to exist exist, like before it became the behemoth that it is,
Yeah.
and before other streaming services were like, oh my God, what the fuck? Netflix is like making so much money. The reason why they were able to do that was because they were able to take advantage of the technological improvements before these old fossils decided that the internet streaming services were actually very good. And the cord cutting generation was like firmly the cord cutting generation. And they were able to pay very little for this IP that they were simply reworking and offering a new distribution mechanism for, right?
Yeah.
And none of this, especially as it stands currently in the way that this service works with 17 different streamers, some of them owned by the same corporate subsidiaries. Right now, no one can monopolize the marketplace, and every single one of these services, including Netflix, originally started with the hope of inevitably monopolizing the entirety of the
That was Netflix's whole pitch.
like, you know, you can't justify your business strategy by saying one day we will inevitably monopolize the entire sector, which is what Netflix did. I think that there will be a dramatic shift. That was inevitable already with how these streamers work, and prices will most likely have to go up as well.
They subsidized it, cut rates on shit at the beginning with investor cash. It's very similar to Uber, right? Where they're like, oh my God, it's so cheap forever and we can pay a lot of money. And then once they actually have to turn a profit, you know, all that starts going away. Now, Netflix is turning a profit, but the other thing is they essentially lied to the public about the idea that there wouldn't be ads on the service. They knew that the HBO model delighted the audience the most, that people don't like ads generally. However, ads are the way you pay for content, right? As you know well, you can make more money from ads than you can from subscribers, period. It is a better business model overall. That is why almost all of TV was ad supported.
more scalable business model.
Absolutely, because people want to pay money less than they want to watch ads.
Chat, Adam is 100% correct, and the same exists in the Twitch streaming space as well. It is just the truth. I'm one of the very few people that sees a subscription model as a more sustainable way to operate, but that's because, you know, my operation is incredibly low cost in comparison to these big budget Hollywood productions. Obviously, they do demand more advertisement revenue so they can get more revenue in general. So there is truth to the one aspect that, like, these platforms are basically held together with ticker tape and quantitative easing backed low interest rates that have exploded the Silicon Valley tech bubble in its growth. That is precisely how these guys have been able to continue thriving in the way that they have with the price points that they are pushing for, you know.
And it's just a false belief. Like, look, what we used to have in just the TV era was you had free TV with ads that was broadcast, you had pay TV with ads that was cable, you had pay TV with no ads that was HBO, Showtime, stuff like that. Netflix said, okay, we're doing pay TV with no ads. That's what we'll do. And people liked it because it was fresh and new, right? But it's ridiculous to think that that was all that there was ever going to be, that all we were going to have was like 5 little HBOs floating around. Like, advertising had to come in. And in fact, Netflix's advertising subscribers, people who pay less and watch ads, are already worth more to them than the people who are paying, you know, $20 a month. And so that means advertising is coming back in. So what this clause is about is there are now services, AVOD. Those are advertising video on demand. They have no subscription fees. Things like Tubi and Pluto. We know that those channels are eventually going to start having shows. And now we have terms when they do.
What the fuck is this? A new trade group, the Streaming Innovation Alliance, brings together Netflix, Max, and more to promote their interest to politicians and government entities. It marks the first time competing streamers have banded together in a united. So they're doing AMPTP too.
They are. I mean, I think this is the AMPTP is like a collective bargaining organization. It's like a union for companies.
Yeah.
This is more of an advocacy group. This is closer to the MPAA.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is like they're gonna lobby senators and have galas and stuff like that. But this also has a really funny list: Afroland TV, America New Network, BET Plus, For Us By Us Network. To me, it looks like this is a couple of massive companies, and then they stacked the deck with a couple of minority-owned channels in order to like
Telemundo.
Yep, in order to like do some sort of, you know, racial equity astroturfing on their corporate agenda. That's what it looks like to me when I see that. To have all of those, it's bizarre. Well, obviously, it's going to be Netflix and Paramount and them running the show.
I love the language on this. They will advocate for federal and state policies that build on the strong, competitive, and pro-consumer market market for streaming video.
Yeah, I mean, so what they are realizing here is that, look, this is same as it ever was, right? They are replacing TV, and they realize, oh, wait, the government's going to come in and regulate it once it's the only thing that people are watching, and so we need to get ahead of that and start doing government lobbying. There's nothing surprising to me about this, but
it's funny because half of these companies are owned by like one major, like it's
Correct.
Comcast.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yes,
They're like, oh yeah,
yes.
Afroland, American New Network, BET Plus, Discovery Plus. It's like half of those companies are all owned by the same company.
Yeah, Max and Discovery Plus are both in there. Those are the same company.
They're padding the deck by being like, oh, look at all these different companies that are getting together, and it's like they're all owned by the same company.
Oh, look who's in there. We got Fred Upton and Mignon Clyburn. I thought that was gonna be the other Clyburn for a second.
Jimmy Clyburn, James Clyburn. No, what the fuck does James Clyburn know about streaming services? I mean,
don't know.
but what does Fred Upton, a Republican who's a 36 veteran of the U.S. House of Representatives, knows about streaming? These motherfuckers don't even know that people are cutting the cord. You know what I mean? All right,
You want to go through the rest of these?
let's go through some of the most important in your opinion.
Okay, so-
artificial intelligence, for example, or pension and health is really.
I just
important.
want to talk about teams really quick. So this was a really big win for us because sometimes writers work on writing teams. They like two writers. It's like a two-headed writer, right? And people do that because it makes each person cheaper. And some people like writing in pairs, but they only would get pension and health contributions on half of them. So we got a stipulation that every member of a writing team gets a pension and health contributions as if they were writing as an individual. That doubles the ability for some of our most vulnerable members to win healthcare coverage. That's the important part. It was a huge win that again was something that we've had members come to us at every meeting saying, please get this, please get this. And we say, it's so hard to get. We're going to try. And we won it for them just like we won script fees for staff writers. It's such a big fucking deal. And then artificial intelligence is the one you really want to know about, right?
Yeah, regulate the use of well, that was the sexy one because AI is like the
Yes.
sexy thing that everyone cares about.
So our proposal was AI can't write or rewrite literary material, can't be used as source material, and MBA cover material, that's our contract, cannot be used to train AI. They rejected the proposal. They offered us annual meetings to discuss advancements in technology.
Yeah.
What's that meeting going to look like?
You silly fool. You don't understand. We'll teach you why
We'll
this
just
is such
have
a good
meeting.
thing.
Well, what's going to happen at the fucking meeting? Like, they'll just, I don't know, here's some sandwiches, now get out of here. So what did they eventually agree to? Almost everything that we asked. AI-generated written material cannot be considered literary material. That means that anything an AI generates cannot be passed off as the work of a writer, can't be used to generate scripts, can't edit scripts, and they cannot assign us work produced by an AI and say that now we're going to pay you less because an AI wrote it. Because, like, for instance, if you write a novel and the studio says we love Hasan's novel, you rewrite it. Now I'm writing an adapted screenplay and I get paid less. That doesn't work with AI. If they were to say, hey, here's an AI novel, adapt that, I get paid as an original screenplay.
This, I think, is also very important. It's the most prescient part, I think, because like artificial intelligence, just like any other technological improvement, is always going to work under a capitalist organization of the economy to displace the existing workforce.
Yeah.
AI, just like any other technological improvement, could work to lift the burden that workers currently have. Not like AI as it currently stands, obviously, maybe not so much, but it can be beneficial as long as it's not being controlled by the capital owners, but instead by the workers themselves. An example I would use is like tools. You know what I mean? Like tools on the assembly line advancing should be an opportunity for workers to work less hours for the same pay, or even more pay, as a matter of fact, because your productive output is going up. Whereas tools, as it stands currently, is a way to displace the existing workers and then make the remaining workforce work double the hours.
And the important part of that is that it's not about the technology itself. It's that whenever there's a new technology, the capitalists use the technology to try to do this. By the way, a lot of times it makes the product worse. AI cannot actually do the work of a writer, and it'll never be able to, because a writer has to be someone who goes to set, has to be somebody who goes to post. That's where writing is done. And AI will never, until they literally have data from Star Trek, it cannot replace a person. But what they could have done was used AI to pay us less for doing the same work. They could have said, okay, the AI wrote the script. Now we just need you to punch it up and go to set and go to post and talk to the actor and blah, blah, blah. You're just a producer, though. You're not a writer. We're like, we're doing the same fucking work, but you used this bullshit technology as a loophole.
More work. Because
work, sure.
adaptive works off of like a prior literary work is still going to be much easier to adapt than fucking, some goddamn robot. I mean, we see the way ChatGPT writes. It's like pretty funny to think about that, because like ChatGPT has like a very specific way of speaking.
Yeah.
And like now with all the weirdos that love utilizing it all over fucking Twitter and all over, you can like kind of tell when ChatGPT is speaking.
And by the way, audience is going to hate AI screenplays if they exist. So again, we're keeping the actual work better for everybody.
Yeah.
And then a company has to disclose to us if any material given to us has been generated by AI. And then for anything in the future on the training piece of it, we have the right to assert that the training based on our shit, it violates our rights. And that's basically there because we don't know how this technology is going to be used 3 years from now. And so we have the right to examine it. And, so it's sort of like a field of future battle on that point.
So yeah, your original proposal was $429 million a year. Their counter was 86, and you arrived at $233 million a year in this proposal. A historic contract, historic W for the WGA, putting the W in the WGA. So congratulations to everyone that worked really long and hard. Now let's get to some of these questions. So now that we went through these line items, this was already, I assume, is ratified already?
No. I'm on the negotiating committee and the board. We voted to pass this deal to the membership. It's going to be ratified over like first week of October or so, but the strike has been suspended. And, if it's not ratified, then we got to go back to the negotiating table. Maybe the strike goes on, but that ain't likely. People are pretty happy
your
with
confidence
this
is,
we'll see what the number is. You don't want a 100% ratification vote. You want some number of people to be angry so that next time you could say, look, we got to get a contract that we can ratify.
Yeah.
But it's going to be ratified over the next couple of weeks.
The other side of this is that, as far as I understand, the WGA has also stated that while this is tentative, it's on hold. The strike is on hold, that they will continue if the SAG-AFTRA strikes continue. Is that something along those lines is like what I've seen being communicated?
So our strike is suspended. We are no longer on strike. SAG-AFTRA is still on strike. Every Writers Guild member has the right to not cross a picket line. We can be, if you have a job that requires you to cross the picket line, you can be fired if you refuse to cross the picket line. But it's every writer's individual right to not cross.
Similar to how IATSE was like capable of refusing to work on the job site out of solidarity.
Exactly right. So a lot of IATSE members took a sacrifice upon themselves to not cross the picket line, right, and support us. We have the ability to do the same. So for instance, I'm not taking a meeting on the Netflix lot as long as there's people walking back and forth in front of it. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of ways for us to get started that don't directly interfere with their strike. For instance, I could have lunch with a director or something.
You start writing.
Yeah, exactly. Like
before you were only tweets, no writing allowed.
There's no currently any SAG-AFTRA shows that are in production that a writer might need to go work on because writers work before the actors and nothing's in production right now. Yeah. So we are going to be as supportive as we can of them under labor law. But look, the companies want this strike over. They want to get back to work. They're going to go to SAG-AFTRA really quickly. We only won some of this stuff because SAG-AFTRA went on strike too.
Okay, good. I have a lot of scripts I got to hand off to you finally so you can give to everybody at the Writers Guild. That's what I've been holding out on.
Hey, before I get out of here, are there any new memes? Because last time I was here, you showed me Skibbity Toilet, and you remember I lost my mind when you showed me Skibbity Toilet, and it became my favorite thing. Is there anything new? Because you know more.
What kind of new memes we got, chat? What do we got on the docket that we can show Adam? We don't really have anything like that crazy. Show him Dracula Flow. What is that? Dracula Flow.
Whoa, bit my face. Yeah. Oh.
No biting. Don't you even think about it. Okay. Quick question for you. So we are firm believers that Bill Maher threatening to come back without a writer's room was the major reason why everybody conceded. Like there was like, no, we can't have this out. We can't allow this to exist in the space.
I actually have a little bit of dirt on that because my belief, what a lot of people believe is, remember, he said he was coming back, and then he said he wasn't. And some people were like, oh, it's because Drew Barrymore got so much heat, he didn't want the heat. There's a better theory than that, which is there's a photo of him and David Zaslav at a Laker game. They're tight. And so probably what actually happened was David Zaslav called Bill Maher and said, don't take the heat. Don't get people mad at you. I'm about to end the strike. Because right after that was the first time we started meeting with them directly. And they did, in fact, end the strike within like a week and a half of Maher deciding.
Okay, I like my theory better, where he told David Zaslav he was going to come back, and David was like, we will never recover financially from this.
You just do the panel part? God.
You will dramatically change the way content is consumed at the global level. Like, people will literally start attacking, engaging in fisticuffs with everyone who has ever even engaged in the act of making a movie or TV show.
Yo, Bill, man, he
shocked the system.
It was so funny when Drew Barrymore was like, I just want to apologize to everybody, and I'm sorry the people I hurt. And Bill Maher's just like, my face, I don't give a I'm an asshole. You.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Yeah.
He's like the closest you can get to like a tenured professor in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like that show's never going away. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that the numbers justify it. I don't know.
I don't know, man. That show is really popular. A couple years ago now, less people watching cable than they used to, but I did that show one time. I had a nice time on the show. I got more people reach out and say, I saw you on Bill Maher, great job, than any other show I've ever done. More than when I did Colbert or anything else. It was fucking nuts.
I think it's
People
older
love that
people.
guy. It
Yeah,
is.
older libs love him.
Older libs do love him, but a lot of I was working on the show at the time, and a bunch of people on set, like our second AD, 32-year-old.
That's who I meant by
was
older.
like, oh, I love that show.
This is what I meant by older. I'm 32 as well, but my audience is significantly younger, I would say. You take offense to that all you want, okay? It doesn't matter. Take offense at the top of the hour ad break, like we talked about earlier.
Hey, before you do that,
Advertisement revenue.
can I plug something real quick?
Yeah, I mean, you can plug it even during. It doesn't matter. Most
But then
people
less
don't
people will see it. Oh, look, most people don't see the ad break.
No, because they're subscribed.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
for $5 or for free.
Okay.
With a Twitch Prime. to
Okay.
run it.
All I want to plug is that I'm a stand-up comic. If you live in St. Louis, Missouri, or you live in Providence, Rhode Island, I'm on the road in October. Come see me. Tickets at adamconover.net. Providence, Rhode Island, St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm going to have more dates up there soon, but those are the two that are there right now. Check out my YouTube channel, Factually Podcast, Adam Conover on YouTube.
Hell yeah.
Do lots of cool shit. All right, dude, thanks so much for having
All
me.
right. Thanks
I'll
for
see
coming
I'll
on.
see you later. Bye, Kaya. Bye, everybody. St. Louis and Providence, Rhode Island. Come see me.
All right, that was Adam Conover from The G Word and Adam Ruins Everything and many other projects. Hopefully soon.